Hi, my name is Tony Davis and welcome to my first YouTube video. Today I'm going to discuss how to operate the Yorahome 6550 laser engraver. A lot of things that go on the channel. There's a lot of questions that should be easily answered if you take time to read the instructions, but I know how people love to read instructions. I'm one of those people, by the way. So what I figured I would do is just put together a step-by-step video of my workflow. My workflow is definitely not to be considered the end-all, the best thing going. It's just what I do to get projects from point A to point B. I figured if I could share that with you, make your process a lot easier, get you up and going as quickly as possible with your laser, and get you having fun with it, and then you can work out the intricacies along the way as you go. First thing you're going to want to make sure of is that you have your laser set up in the proper location. For my installation, I chose a nice level workspace near a window, near an electrical outlet. I have, just as a matter of convenience, I have metal shelving on each side. You're going to need some way to hang your wires if you choose not to use the chain kit that they have for sale at Yorahome. I have a magnetic CB antenna, high tech, hanging from the top with the wire stretched over it. Works pretty good. The wire will follow the laser and move along without bunching everything up. Okay, so you're going to need, I have this fan in the window for exhaust purposes. You're going to want to make sure that you have adequate ventilation, because some of the products that you're going to be using to engrave are going to create some pretty funky fumes, if not toxic. So what I've done here is I've set up my laser. I've got it some spacers underneath of there to make sure that the laser is level, because I have to sit on the windowsill in the back, so it's made it a little funky. Some of the tools you're going to need to have readily available is a small level, because you're going to use that on a regular basis. The little device that come with your Yora laser for determining what the space should be between your workpiece and your laser. And the rest is just the laser, making sure everything's fine. Now, the correct positioning for your laser is with the control board in the back right corner. That would make this the front of the laser and the control board the rear of the laser. Okay, the laser should be mounted on the front of this cross member. I forget what, a gantry, I think is what they call it. And any accessories that you might have, if you have, I'm sure everybody's now getting the little shield. I choose not to use the shield because it tends to build up quite a bit of soot on the camera, on the laser lens itself. So with that, let's move on to the next step. Now that you've got your machine all set up, it's just about that time. Of course, you know, you're going to have to hook up the electrical components of the machine. You're going to have to run your USB cable over to the computer. And this video kind of assumes that you're capable of running those little connections. You're going to make sure your software is installed on the computer and all of that. And we're going to be using laser grbl today. And I know there's a big debate on which one is better, laser grbl or that one that costs you $40. So for me, I'm starting off with a $40 advantage by using the free software, and it's really pretty versatile. So one of the things you're going to want to make sure that you have is the ability to raise and lower your laser from your workpiece. Okay, so this little platform here is a platform that Yora sells. It's a little bit small, and I've seen that there's actually a 12 by 12 version that's for sale on Amazon. So you're going to want to have something like that, or you can use just the Z-axis if you want to get that from Yora. Now, I happen to have both because sometimes one's a little better than the other. My work surface is sometimes not exactly level when using this piece, so I've got a little penny there to kind of put it, move that around to where I need it in order to get my workpiece level. So once you've got all of this done and set up and everything is connected, you've got your software installed and all that, your next step is to decide what medium you want to use. So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out if your project going to be on a piece of wood, is it going to be on a ceramic tile, piece of slate, whatever the medium that you're going to use. You have to kind of set up for that. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways. This is a 6x6 ceramic tile for sale at Home Depot, Lowe's, any of the big box stores. Nothing special about it. It's just a plain white tile, very inexpensive. There's a vast number of different spray paints. I happen to prefer the coral look. It works really well for me. Make sure that you get something with a high zinc content. And then you're going to want to clean these up with lacquer thinner. Get you a rag, put some lacquer thinner on it, clean it really good, let the lacquer thinner dry. Very important. If the lacquer thinner does not dry and you paint it, you're going to get a wrinkled up piece of mess, look like a raisin. So once it's dried completely, you put an even coat of your spray paint on the tile and let that dry. You don't need multiple coats, just as long as it's covered with one coat, because all you're looking for is that chemical reaction between the laser and the paint. Once you've got that done and your product is dry, you're ready to move forward. You're going to want to bring your tile into your workspace, sit it up on your bench. Now you'll notice on my setup, I do not have a laser board grid and all that stuff that some people prefer to use. To me, a grid is unnecessary. I'm gonna set up my laser and I'm gonna make sure it's square with every project that I do. And as I don't have a specific spot to start every project, laser grids and everything are just unnecessary for me. Once you get your tile set up into this orientation, now notice I have it set up on my elevator, and my laser is set over to the side. So once you've got it sitting there relatively square, you can then move your laser. Don't move it too quickly because you'll cause problems with that. So you can slowly move it over into roughly where your bottom left corner of your project piece. That's going to be your starting point. Okay, so you want to get that to that bottom left corner when at all possible. Now, one of the things you're going to do once you get your workpiece put in there in a relatively square position, two things you need to do. You need to make sure it's level. That's where your little level comes in. You're going to put it on top of your piece there. Make sure you'll see that this one is slightly off level. That's where Mr. Lincoln comes in handy. You just slide him in a little bit and adjust accordingly until you get that bubble between your lines. Now, we're just close enough for our demonstration. Then you're going to want to make sure that your laser is set at the appropriate height from your workpiece. Now, you can do that anywhere on the workpiece. I would suggest somewhere in the center, since that's going to be crossed over quite a bit. All right, you want to sit your piece here below the flat portion on your laser. That's not this outside corner, but the absolute round circle in the middle where the laser sits. That's the surface that you want to adjust your distance. Now, I can adjust the distance with the platform down here or with the Z-axis. We're going to do it with the Z-axis. We're going to turn that down until our laser gets to the appropriate setting. I don't know if you can see that, but we're going to put it right where it just touches this piece. We're just prior to touching it right now, so we'll put it down just a little bit more. Okay, I can just feel the laser scraping the top of that, so that's perfect. All right, so and I drilled a little spot over here to keep this piece in so it doesn't disappear on me, because if that disappears, then you got to come up with another 20 millimeter measuring device, and that one's pretty handy. So once you've got this set in, your distance is set, you want to put this back to your bottom left-hand corner. Now your workpiece can be anywhere within the confines of the machine itself. It doesn't matter if you put it in the center, if you put it over here, because you're going to tell the machine later where its starting point is. And then you're going to put in all the figures in the software to tell it where its limitations are, where it needs to stop, where the print surface is going to be. All right, so with that, we'll move over to the software side of the situation. Okay, so there's two really important softwares that you're going to need to use. One, you're going to have a photo editing software, your choice. I mean, there's a lot of nice softwares on the market. Photoshop is very good. I use GIMP because GIMP has a lot of Photoshop features. I'm somewhat familiar with Photoshop, not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but GIMP is a very versatile software, and Photoshop has long been the standard in photo editing, and this GIMP very closely mimics Photoshop. So I have my computer set up kind of trying to keep it organized. So I have a folder up here that says laser tools, and I try to keep the software that I'm going to use with my laser in the laser tools folder. So that if I click on that, that brings up my two software. This is the icon for GIMP. This is the sort of icon for Laser grbl. Laser grbl is the software that comes with your device on your thumb drive. You can also download the current version at lasergrbl.com. That's the way I actually did it, because that version has the updates and everything that you're going to need. It also has the little buttons that you're going to see when we get to that point. You'll see some buttons across the bottom of the screen that don't come on the version that was when I bought my machine. It wasn't on the zip drive that came with the machine. But just so you understand the workflow, the first thing that you're going to want to do, I see a lot of questions on the website. Hey, I got my machine, it's all set up, now what? Well, a little research goes a long way, but what you have to understand is that Laser grbl is not the end all be all for laser engraving. These two programs work in conjunction very well, but you need to edit your image to provide the function that you want in Laser grbl. For instance, if you're going to do a 6x6 tile, you're going to want to make sure that your image is 6x6, or at least somewhere close to that, but ideally 6x6. So let's go ahead and get GIMP started. Okay, this is going to be your original work, your splash screen, I guess, whatever they call it, their home screen. And you'll see there's nothing there. Now, for expedience sake, just briefly, if someone's got a photo that they're going to send you and they want you to recreate it on a tile, you're going to want to edit that photo in GIMP. Make sure that the settings are all right, the contrast is right, the size is right, and you're going to do that by going up here to File, and you're going to click on New File. And when you click on New File, that's going to bring up an image. If your tile is 6x6, then you're going to want to make sure, look, this right here says pixels right now. So you don't want pixels. You're going to want inches, because that makes it nice and easy for you to understand. 6x4. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and change the 6x4 to just 6. And that's going to leave you with a height of 3x6 inches. Now, I'm not really sure why it does that, but you can, let's see, if I change this 6, I think it usually will change the first, but nope, okay, I'm thinking about the other Laser grbl. So 6x6 is your size of your image. You go ahead and hit OK, keeping in mind that you're at, your pixel size is going to be 1000 by 1800. It tells you all that stuff down here. Your pixels per inch, 300. That's your resolution. So you hit this, and there's your workspace. So now all you have to do is copy that image that they sent you and move it over here onto this image, and then you may have to resize it. But usually once you copy that image over and you've created this space at 6x6, it's gonna blend right into that spot. So since I don't have an image that I want to work with right now, I'm going to go over here and just bring one of the images in that I've already created. Now, I have my files organized similar to my desktop. I have everything under pictures. All my photographs and things are under pictures, and then I have other files under there. So I have one that says laser projects. So we're going to click on laser projects, and then we have slate projects, ceramic tile projects, and then I've just got some general projects that are put there. But we'll go to ceramic tile projects, and let's look at one. Let's see, for instance, let's do this one here. Jesus, one of my favorite subjects. So this is an image that I got off a website somewhere. I don't know. Sorry, I shorted you the credit, whoever put it up there originally. But you can go just about anywhere, get an image. Usually you want to make sure that it's in the public domain, so you don't have any copyright infringements and what have you, or be very bold and do it anyway. So you get the image. This image has already been sized. It's 6 by 6. And I've made the adjustments in color and what have you. And you can do all that up here with these. You can go into image and you can change mode, precision, color management. You can transform. You can change your canvas size. There's all kind of options here. The versatility of this program is amazing, but it is quite a learning curve to see any imaging software. No matter what software you use, there's going to be some serious learning that takes place on how to use them. And that's not the purpose of this video today. It's just simply to show you workflow. So once you get to this point, you've got your image put up there, and you've got it the way you want it. Then you're going to want to go over here to File, and you're going to want to export. You go here, you say Export As, and then you give the file the name, and you tell it what folder you want to save it in, and then it's saved on your computer for future use. All right, so then once you get this done and you're finished with GIMP, you can close GIMP out, or at least I think you can if you push that X. That's what's supposed to happen. Then you want to bring your Laser grbl software up. Okay, so you start Laser grbl. New version has been, we'll do that later. All right, and I like to use a maximized screen. So, okay, so then you're going to come up with this screen. Nothing, it's a blank screen. You'll notice that the arrows down here are subdued. They're not brightly lit. These are the buttons that I was telling you about. Some of the buttons that you get when you download from the website are the blink button, the focus button, the frame button. So those are going to be used in squaring your image and making sure that your starting point is correct. So you're going to want to have those buttons. So your first step is to it depends on how you want to do it. You could either start the machine and connect it at this point, or you can bring in the image. So we're just going to bring in the image. I'm going to go over here to the File menu, and we're going to open the file. And we're going to go down to the same location where we went before, Pictures, Laser Projects, Ceramic Tile, and then we're going to scroll down to see. Okay, and yeah, we'll do. Okay, now it's going to come up in this screen and you're going to say, wow, that looks terrible. Okay, so if you notice right here, line preview is checked. Turn line preview off, you get more of a representation of what the images looks like. So on this particular image, you can see that the whites are really blown out here. So one of the first things I'm going to do then is probably adjust either my brightness. I can turn my brightness down a little bit, and that'll bring those whites back into line, or I can adjust my white clip. The white clip is basically allows the laser to scan through the white sections very quickly without taking the time to go dot by dot. When it sees a white area, it just basically scans across it, which speeds up your engraving speed dramatically. Okay, so I got the thing the way I want it. I can turn line preview back on. It's going to be a little blown, I mean a little funky looking, hazy, but that's kind of a representation of what it's going to look like. All right, so settings here. Grayscale, mine normally is like optical correct. I don't usually mess with these because I haven't seen a need to mess with them. And like I said, I'm not a laser grbl expert. So, you know, if it ain't broke, I don't fix it. So line to line is where I prefer to do a lot of my shooting. Now, a lot of people I see go to 1-bit black and white dithering, you know, or they'll, you know, pass through ignores all the settings in laser grbl. It doesn't make any modifications. It just uses them. The way you sent the photo from GIMP to laser grbl is how it's used. Down here, this direction here is how you want the laser to print. So this is important if you're printing on wood and the grain is going side to side on your workpiece. Then you don't want your laser to print side to side with the grain. You want it to print across the grain. So you're going to want to change that to vertical if your lines, if the wood grain is going left to right, or you can change it to diagonal, and it'll print exactly how you tell it to print. It's going to print diagonally across the screen, it's going to print horizontally across the screen, or it's going to print vertically from one side to the other. Quality depends on what you're printing. If you're printing an image like this, you're probably going to want a higher quality. The quality is going to be at 5 by default usually, or the last place you set it will be where it returns. So you're going to have to make sure that you set that where you want it. Once you get all these settings correct, then you're going to move down here. You're going to hit next. That's going to bring up a very important screen, target image. This is where you set your speed and your power. Okay, so on this particular image, you know, I don't know that this is the right settings for this image, but I do have a notebook where I keep track of all these images, and you would do yourself a great favor by doing the same thing. When you go back to a similar image, you can just go to your notebook and say, hey, this is the way I did this one. I'm going to try these settings to start with. So your speed, this particular speed is set at 1,000 millimeters per minute. That's decent speed. You're going to want to make sure that if you're using this on a laser and not on a CNC machine, you're going to want to make sure that it says M4 dynamic power. Now, sometimes when you set it in M4 and as soon as you go to print your project, you're going to see an error message pop up that says your machine is not capable of M4. But if you follow the directions on that little arrow screen, it tells you how to fix that issue. Just follow those directions and then you'll be able to use M4. But it's very important that you use M4 because it allows your power to vacillate based on your settings. So M4 is by far the fastest way, so you definitely want to go that way. All right, your power settings here, S-min, that's your minimum power. You're most likely not going to have an occasion to use that, but some of the people that are really well versed with this want their power to run within a certain range, so they set a minimum power. I leave my minimum at 0. I set my maximum power, and this number is determined by one of your settings. I think it comes default that your max power setting is 100, which means this would be 25, but I changed mine to 1,000, which allows me smaller increments, and I set it at 250 when I want 25%. So you have to know where your setting in the setup is on your maximum power. Down here is your size. Sorry about that. Down here is your size of your image. Okay, so this one you don't have the capability of changing from millimeters to inches, but that's where this newfangled fancy device right here comes in. Well, I probably shouldn't be showing my password, but but I can take this and click on my little Google thing, convert 6 inches to millimeters.
152.4 millimeters.
And there you go, just that simple. So if I'm printing on a 6x6 tile, I want to change this to 152. Probably leave it at 152 because you don't want it to go all the way to the edge. You want to have just a little bit of a buffer zone there, if you will. And then it'll be the same on both. This offset, this refers to if you have an image that's going to be smaller than your work piece. For instance, I have a chessboard over here that I was doing, and that has an offset. I wanted a border around it. I didn't want the thing to go from edge to edge, so I set this offset. This X offset determines the side, how far you move the total image over from your home space, which would be down here. If I want to move it over, an inch, I need to find out what, I need to use my little converter, find out what an inch is in millimeters and put that offset in. If I wanted to move it the other direction, I would put a negative in front of that offset, but you don't want to move left of your starting position. So most of the time you're going to have a little offset there. So if you're with a 6x6, you're not going to have an offset, so it's going to be 0. All right, and then you're going to have a Y offset is the same way that your top to bottom image, so you're going to set your offset there to 0 as well. Let's see, and then at that point you hit create. That's going to create your image. It kind of gives you a rough idea at the bottom down here how long it's going to take to do the image with the settings that you provide. Now you're going to find out that that's never right. It's usually going to take longer than that no matter what. But at that point, your image is ready to go, and all you have to do is connect your laser. So we'll stop here and pick it back up in just a minute. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to set up your machine, connect your computer, and basically, in order to have the computer connected to the machine power, of course, has to be on. Okay, so my power button is located way around the back side here in a very difficult to reach position. Notice that the light on the laser came on. That's because there's also a power button up here, and I turned that on when I bought the machine, and I've never touched it since then. I'll leave that on. I use the power button on the controller. So at this point, my machine is now ready to be connected. So I come back over to the computer. This button right up here in the top right corner looks like a lightning bolt and a little circle or something. That's my connect button. I'm going to click on that, and that's going to be an indication that the connection has been made. You're going to see, it says grbl 1.1 class yada yada $sign for help. You'll now see that the buttons at the bottom are no longer subdued. They're brightly colored. I have adjustments for my speed, and my fan on my laser is making funny noise. Basically, these settings on the side are for the jog buttons alone. So right now the speed is set at 1000, so it's going to move as quickly as allowable, and the increment is 1 pixel. So when I move the thing with the jog button, the laser is only going to move 1 pixel at a time. So that can be adjusted. If you're going to make bigger movements, you can just take your mouse and come down here and just click above this spot. That'll move it up to the next increment. Click above it again, that'll move it up to the next increment. So for this video, we'll use 5 for right now, and we may change that once we get it established. So this is where your buttons come into play, and for this I'm going to put my safety glasses on, because we will be activating the laser in a very low power configuration here. But this button that says blink, that's going to be one of the first tools that you're going to use. That's going to tell you where your laser is set on your workpiece. So you hit the button that says blink, and you see that the laser is off from where it's supposed to be. So seeing, you know that you've got to come towards you and maybe toward the outside edge. Then you go back to your blink button. and you hit that. All right, now I'm off of the piece. So I'm going to change our setting back from 5 to 1, and I'm actually going to use my diagonally down right button, because that's the direction I have to move in. And I'm going to hit that a couple times. And then I'm going to go back over to blink. And I'm going to see close. I'm on the edge now, but I still have to come toward me a little bit. So I'm going to come back to my jog button, push my down button a couple times. And we're probably still going to be a little short, but yeah. So I want it to be right on the tip of that corner. Right where you see it now, that's good, if I can get it to that. So that tells me that my piece, my starting point right now is right there. So very important, now that I have the laser on the point where I want to start on my workpiece, I have to go here to this button on the computer where the globe is at, and I have to click that. That establishes that point as my home position. So during the rest of this process, that's going to be the starting point. If I hit the home button, it should come right back to there. I don't usually hit the home button though, so I'm not 100% sure about that. But that establishes my starting point basically. So now from that point, earlier I told you to make sure that the piece is relatively square. This is where you're going to make sure that the piece is exactly square. And you're going to use the button on the bottom of Laser grbl that says frame. Once you click that button, this laser is going to go around the settings that I have, and hopefully I set those correctly. We'll see. We'll hit the frame button, and you'll be able to watch how the thing is going to travel. So it's establishing what your work area is. So you're going to want to watch and make sure that the laser is very close to the edge, that it travels the same distance from the edge in both directions and all the way around the tile. And then assuming that that is all correct, then you're going to be ready to go. So let's hit our frame button. You'll see that I'm off. So I can adjust this as the thing travels. So I just moved it up that way. It's still out a little bit. I'm still off a little bit, right down the edge. And I'm off again. So it looks like I may have to adjust my settings. So when you're this far off, you're going to want to go back up on your computer. You're going to want to go to File, and you can just hit Reload Last File, which is going to give you the same image, but you're going to be able to make changes. So all of this first screen should still be okay. So I'm not going to make any changes there. Going to go back to the next button. And here, we're going to see that 152 is where I left it. That's the 6x6 measurement. So I'm probably a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 150. That's going to give me another millimeter on each side. And we're going to hit the tab, and it should go to 150 there. And then we're going to hit Create. All right, it's going to recreate the image. It's going to drop the size or the time just slightly because it now has less printing space. And then we're going to go back over to frame again. The home is still the same spot, so we don't have to adjust anything there. We're going to frame it out again, and we're way off. So we're going to put that over there, and we're going to put that down there. Oh, so close. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so we're just slightly off on square, so that's the whole purpose for doing this. So we want to make sure that we've got it sitting in there squarely. And there we go. So, as they say, old wives' tale, 30-second time is a charm. So sometimes this takes a little bit of effort, but now we know that our workpiece is square with our laser printer, that our start position is the bottom left-hand corner. And at this point, the only thing left to do is to go up here, assuming that you have your settings the right way. Now, keep in mind that you can adjust power in the middle of the process, but it's not always a good idea because there's going to be a noticeable change. If you change the power level and you've got enough of the image down on your workpiece to see, and then you make a change to it, you're also going to see that change. So it's going to, if it wasn't dark enough and then you make the change, you're going to see that that change has been made. A lot of times you're going to run into an issue where, and this happens to everybody, so don't panic. It's a real pain in the butt, but if you still have your updates and everything turned on your laptop, do yourself a favor, go in, find those settings and turn that thing off, for God's sakes, because you're going to be doing a project like this, let's say this chessboard, for example. You're going to be doing a project like that, and halfway through the project, or 3/4 of the way through the project, or 7/8 of the way through the project, your computer's going to do an update and it's going to lose connection with Laser grbl. Once that connection is lost, you can't go back and start where you left off. So that actually happened on this particular project. I got everything except the last line up here, but I didn't move anything on the laser. The board was still intact. So basically all I did was turn my power level way down, I turned my speed way up, and I ran through the whole project again. And when I got up to roughly the same spot where it was when the update occurred, I set my power and speed level back to where they were supposed to be, and I ended up with just a very small piece that I won't point out, but it actually worked out, and I was able to save this piece because I had about 4 hours of engraving time in it at that point. So you click that button, all of your commands that are printed out here. This is all your G commands that tell the laser what to do. It will start to execute those commands, and you'll see the laser start to move back and forth. The light will actually come on at the power level that you've got it set, and you will see things begin to happen. So that is, once you've gotten to that point, which I'm not going to do that because I don't want to have another project of the same image, but at this point I just click that button and the printing will start. Of course you want to turn your ventilation on as well, because the paint, the fumes coming off of this paint when the laser starts to react with it is a little bit foul. So turn your ventilation on, hit your play button, the little arrow right there, and the magic will happen. So that pretty much gives you the idea, or the step-by-step walkthrough on my process for doing ceramic tiles. So you can see the finished product. That is the finished product, side by side with the original. So came out pretty good. I'm very happy with that one. So and I've done a lot of different ones. So you're going to have to figure out the imaging software is a key part of this whole process. So you have to be familiar with the imaging software. You have to be well versed enough, because you're going to have images that you're going to want to remove the background. You're going to have images that you want to add circular letters and things like that too. And all that is done with your image editing software. Once the image is sent to Laser grbl, this is not an imaging software, so you're not going to be able to add all that stuff in with Laser grbl. I see tons of people on here asking, how can I add circular letters to the image? All that is done in GIMP or an image editing software. You cannot do that in Laser grbl. If you can, I don't know how to do it, but to be sure, the imaging software is a much better tool for that particular application, as well as removing backgrounds and stuff like that. You can make some contrast adjustments and things like that with Laser grbl, and that's fine. But the overall best tool to use for getting the image the way you want it is your image editing software. Oh, I guess I can take these off now. So set the image up the way you want it in your Laser grbl software. In your image editing software, and then once you've got it established, save it in a file so you can use it later. Because a lot of times, I know there's several people on the site that make coasters, things that they're going to be doing a lot of. Now, when you're doing something like that, my method may not be the best method. If you're going to be doing, 200 pieces that are all the same, you're going to want to put a jig in here where you can put that piece in place. And for those, I'm sure readily available on YouTube on how to build a jig for different things. But basically, you want to build a little, like for tiles, for example, or square coasters, you want a 90-degree jig where you can just put that thing in that corner every time, and you don't have to change your settings. Everything's going to be the same, one piece after another. The jig will save you a bunch of time and a bunch of effort. So hopefully this video has been helpful. There are some things with laser grbl that we didn't touch on, basic stuff, the stop button, the go button, things of that nature. But that's my work process for having fun with my laser instead of frustration. So hopefully it was helpful for you, and maybe in the future, if this goes well and we get a lot of likes, I understand that's how this thing works, but we'll do a second video explaining something a little more detail. So with that, y'all be safe, wear your eyeglasses, safety protection, and have fun most of all.